So today we are excited to welcome Jack Bowen to discuss his latest work, his third, if you can read this, The Philosophy of Bumper Stickers. By way of introduction, Jack graduated from Stanford University in 1995 with honors in human biology. While he was there, he was also an All-American water polo player. He went on to earn his master's degree in philosophy at Cal State. Currently, Jack teaches philosophy and coaches water polo at Menlo School in Atherton. His debut novel, The Dreamweaver, made the San Francisco Chronicle bestseller list for March 2006 and was one of Kepler Bookstore's top 10 sellers for that year. His second work, Journey Through the Landscape of Philosophy, is a college philosophy textbook, and he's accompanied both of these by publishing in numerous philosophy journals, primarily in ethics. And finally, Jack is a senior lecturer with the Great Books program at Stanford University in the summers. He's an avid musician, member of numerous bands. He currently lives in Redwood City with his wife and their dog Chewbacca and two cats, Patches and Plato. So please join me in welcoming Jack Bowen.
Well, I am very excited to be here at Google. First of all, I have a new bumper sticker for my collection. This doesn't happen very often for me. This is actually the final day. The book came out almost exactly a month ago, and I've been doing basically about 2 events a day for the last month throughout the country, and today's the final day. I'm at Google today and Santa Clara University tonight, and in my 2.5 years of researching, I developed a document, sits right at the top left corner of my computer, that ended up with about 2,200 bumper sticker slogans, from which I distilled the about 160 that end up in the book. So rarely do I get bumper stickers that I haven't seen, and actually did see this on someone's computer along with the one to which it responds, and thought, wow, that's really cool, and I kind of don't get it, which is also really exciting for me. And I didn't really want to admit this at the beginning of this talk, where I'm like the bumper sticker guy and I'm the expert on bumper sticker slogans, but I was gifted this. This will find a special spot. So I'm also feeling a little bit overwhelmed as I heard someone whispering NPR yesterday. And I was this morning, which I shouldn't have done, I should have saved it for tomorrow. I went through, there were about 200 blog posts regarding the talk with Michael Krasny yesterday on Forum, with a lot of new twists to bumper stickers. And so my head is like buzzing in a very exciting intellectual buzzing sort of way. So I'm going to try to stay focused with what I came here to do today, which is to what I'd like to do is share a few of the insights that I garnered from spending a few years writing about and discussing the big ideas couched within bumper sticker slogans, and read a few excerpts. And I know many of you have the book. I can't believe you get the book. This is a really cool place to work. So I don't want to stand here and just read these bumper sticker entries. And then absolutely, if we have any favorite, or what often is the case, least favorite bumper sticker slogans or questions, I understand we'll have a little bit of time for that. And I'll kind of stick around afterwards if you guys don't have work that you have to be doing, or if this is one of those 20% of the time where you don't have to do that thing where you focus and you get to do whatever you want to do, right? We know about that. And so on the heels of that, and I want to get started, which I think will be an interesting insight given where we are. When you are hoping to publish a book, you do this sort of annoying process of putting together a book proposal. And it's about it's a 20-page document or so that basically says eventually to Random House, here's the book that I envision, here's why it will be popular. You're required to put other books like yours, which you always want to say, there are none, mine's the one of a kind. And you want to put the ideal demographic, the sort of target audience. Now, my first answer, what I actually put on the book proposal that I sent to Random House, which they ended up coming back and saying, we want this book, we want to go big with it. But I still get a hard time from Barbara, my editor, is my target audience was everyone. And right, they said, Jack, your book can't be targeted at everyone. If it's targeted at everyone, it's targeted at no one. And we can talk about sort of Wittgenstein's notions of the philosophy of language if we want to. They said you can't say everyone. Your book, no one's book is for everyone. My hope was philosophy is this sort of universal pursuit of big ideas, and that, the 5-year-old, the incessant, why, can discuss big ideas with his or her grandparents. And I've actually had great, really fun philosophical discussions with 5-year-olds and 80-year-olds. So they did come back and say, okay, we kind of now get why you chose everyone, and we are spreading our target audience. But when they forced me, they said, you need to come back and be a little bit more specific. I said, Googlers was one of was the first sort of target audience that I came back at. Sort of people who, in my mind, are very interested in, stay focused, don't ignore abstract.
But hopefully it works this time. Mute, success, mute.
This is okay, I like this. Are we doing super special interaction? Oh, their microphones just started working. And the idea being that in the three books that I've written, the hope for me as a writer, as an educator, is to not only show people that philosophy is doable, because one of the things that I encounter when people say, oh, what did you study, or what do you do? And occasionally, just to throw people a little bit, I say, well, I'm a philosopher. And they say, what did he say? We should go. Like, we're going to go get some punch, right? And or the other response is, they kind of cringe, like, ugh. Because their experience with college, their one college philosophy class that they took to fulfill a requirement, probably tended to be relatively boring and unnecessarily abstract. And I understand it's a fair criticism of sort of academic philosophy. And so what my hope has been is to bring philosophy into the mainstream and to show people not only that it's something that we can do, but it's something that we're doing all the time anyway. When we're talking about politics or the Tea Party or who should get healthcare, we're doing philosophy. When we talk about our favorite band, which band is better than who, or which sports team is better than which, we're doing philosophy. When we're talking about love and relationships, we're doing philosophy. And so this is what I've tried to do with the 3 books. This one, I think, considerably better than the other 2. And there's something that the introduction at Harvard University last week, it was a very thoughtful introduction. It was about a 5-minute introduction. He was sort of talking about big ideas and sort of giving a talk of his own. And in the introduction, he said, what Mr. Bowen has done here is he has taken all of these books, and we were actually in the philosophy section, which is also extremely distracting for me. I had to give my talk like this. It's like being in a candy store for a philosopher. And he said, Mr. Bowen has taken all of these works that nobody wants to read. No one wants to sit down and read Aristotle and Derrida and Wittgenstein. And philosophy for most people is akin to, and here's what he came up with, copulating with a cactus. That was the imagery that he wanted to go with on that evening at Harvard University. So we had some fun with that during the talk, but I guess I have done that work for you. And then ideally couch them in these slogans that serve as the sort of catalyst for talking about these ideas. So this all kind of got started with a bumper sticker that I used in a class one day. We were discussing the death. This is madness at Google. I was discussing. We were doing a segment on the death penalty, and that morning I was out and about getting my morning coffee, and pulled up behind a car that had sort of it was excessively verbose, right? I will for spending your lunchtime with me, I will give you this little tidbit in a fit of procrastination. Right? If you can remember back to writing papers or having projects due, and when these things happen, right, your room becomes immaculately clean, and you write all your letters to your grandparents, etc. Well, when you have a book due, you also find ways to procrastinate. So one afternoon, I took the time to average all 2,200 bumper sticker slogans. The average length of a bumper sticker is 8.1 words. So there you go. There's your factoid for the day. And which reminds me of a bumper sticker. And this is, I saw this sticker on the way home from my East Coast portion of the tour, the last day of it. Part of my hope in researching was to make sure this book had the best bumper stickers in it. There was a little part of it that was for me, that when I turned that final draft into Random House and this book came out, I didn't then see this amazing bumper sticker that would have worked perfectly in my book. So it was a little bit for my own edification and knowing that I wasn't going to encounter this. So along the lines of this stat, this 8.1 words, By the way, nice job, 7 words, I noticed. I saw a bumper sticker. It would have fit very nicely in with the introduction where I mentioned the statistic, and the bumper sticker is, if it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, comma. Good, yes. It's amazing it would have fit so nicely in the introduction. But so I pulled up behind this 14-word bumper sticker. It's practically a novel. And fortunately, it was at a red light. And the bumper sticker said, "Why do we kill people? To show people that killing people is wrong." It's a very popular argument against the death penalty. It's somewhat flawed, which I discussed in the book. But I took that slogan and started class. Basically, class began, it was an afternoon class that day, and I walked up to the board and just wrote the slogan on the board. We're very concerned about plagiarism at the Menlo School, so I cited my source, right? Bumper sticker, Menlo Park, September 2nd. And almost immediately, the students had, right, the vision I have, students had sunk their intellectual talons into it and were doing philosophy. They were engaged in philosophical discourse. Now, this is somewhat, typically, it's a challenge as a teacher, especially afternoon course, like Google. We have great food at Menlo, so they just finished a great meal, 45 minutes of good solid flirting, and now they're coming to class to talk about philosophy. Now, I've tried the other approach. Welcome, students, take your seats. Today, get your pencils out. I want you to write this term down. We're going to talk about Immanuel Kant's notion of reciprocal retributivism. And they're etching it into their notebooks. But instead, what happened is after about 8 to 10 minutes of their vibrant discussions, I was sort of able to say, okay, the 2/3 of you who are defending this are arguing on behalf of Immanuel Kant's notion of this thing that he called reciprocal retributivism, where we ought to mete out punishments as closely as possible to the crimes or actions that were committed. And instead of this, the wincing and the etching, it was this sense of tell me more, right? The 1/3 of you who are arguing against this are arguing along the lines of utilitarianism, that we ought to always strive to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest number. And instead of me feeling like I was forcing these ideas on students, they were asking me for more. They were discussing these ideas after class. They were sharing the bumper sticker with friends. And I realized that this is a really great catalyst for sort of tearing down the fears or the concerns of what doing philosophy is and getting people engaged. So that weekend I did the unthinkable. Emily Post, who certainly I think gave many of our parents their semblance of manners and then were passed on to many of us, right? Always says when you're at a dinner party, no talking about politics, purpose of life, religion, et cetera, right? You're focusing on, I don't know, sports teams, right? The golf and the basketball and current events, right? Chris Martin of Coldplay and Gwyneth Paltrow, right, are considering an open relationship. You know this, right? These sorts of things. Thank goodness you don't actually know that, and I wish I didn't. But they tend to be a little more mundane from my vantage point. Now, as a philosopher, if you show up to a dinner party and say, hey, pass the green beans, and maybe, do you guys want to maybe try to solve the purpose of life question? That's actually usually the reaction that one gets, right? My wife is nudging me, like, we want to get invited back. Don't do your philosophy stuff here. Do the Chris Martin thing, and we'll all have a good time. So I mentally brought in a bumper sticker, and this is before I was known as the bumper sticker guy, right before this project had started. And so I sort of threw out, I said, hey, I saw this bumper sticker the other week. Let's see, what was it? What if the hokey pokey is what it's all about? Right? Everyone had a good laugh, and then someone chimed in, well, but yeah, I mean, isn't that kind of what life is about? Like whatever your version of shaking it all about is, and right, and someone added on, well, yeah, if we're not pursuing happiness, like what is the purpose of life? And then inevitably someone countered, but there's got to be something sort of more intrinsically meaningful and purposeful to our lives than just shaking it all about. And so there we were, really actually discussing the purpose of life without me announcing that we were doing this. And sort of Jessica and I were nudging each other under the table, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I get to write this really fun book. And she's thinking, oh my gosh, they're doing this thing you wanted to do that usually annoys everyone, and it's fun for everyone. And the day after the book came out, I spoke at Oracle, and there were, do we boo them, or how does this work here? No, we're good. I don't know how this stuff works. There were two gentlemen sitting in the sort of on the aisle in the very back row, faces down, not looking at me once, not listening to an iota of all this wisdom that I was giving out. And I talk ended, I thank you, and he has the first hand. So this is a bad sign. You give a talk, they don't listen to a thing you say, they've got the first question right out of the gates. So, yes, sir, you in the back? Well, it's not a question, it's a comment. It's a second bad sign. He doesn't have a question, he has something to say. He wasn't listening in the first place. A third bad sign, I say, well, what's the comment? Well, we're on to you. The tough start to the book tour. Yeah, yes, what is it? What have you figured out? I said, well, we've been perusing your book, and you're basically using bumper stickers as the sugar on top to actually get us to read about philosophy. And I thought, wow, that's the sugar on top analogy is really apt. I kind of wish I'd thought of that. That's exactly what I'm doing. Have I been saying something like, and I thought, I said, well, my tail starting to tuck between my legs. I said, yeah, yes, that's what the book is about. He said, well, it's great. We love it. And I said, oh, yes, this is a great book. I'm very proud of it. And that's exactly what's going on here, is that we're using bumper stickers to get people engaged and to really feel like they can discuss these philosophical issues in a way that's relevant to us. Because that's, I think, the real power and beauty of these ideas, is that they're not merely these abstract notions given to us by sort of the tall ivory towers of academia. That's certainly being done. I mean, there's a lot of what's being written and discussed in academics that is extremely, almost unnecessarily abstract. But the bulk of philosophical discourse is extremely relevant and accessible. And I'd come to find that these bumper stickers, bless all of you, were a great way to go about doing this. And so in this book proposal that I sent to Random House, right, it included 10 entries, right? So along with the proposal, you include a sample of the writing. And when they wrote back and said, we want to do this, they said, what we don't want is the guy who wrote these 5 entries, right? If you've seen the book, there are about 160 bumper stickers, and in a page and a half to 2 pages, I distill sort of the deeper meaning behind them, or in many cases, lack thereof. And they said, we don't want these 5. I said, what didn't you like about those 5? Then we felt like we were reading a book by a philosophy professor, right? Which is what my first 2 books kind of were. I mean, the second book is blatantly a university textbook, which followed this novel that the characters in the novel sort of living out these philosophical ideas, but it's heavily rooted in philosophy. And then the second book, it's an 800-page philosophy textbook, like note to self, don't write any more textbooks. I even have gotten, I won't call it hate mail, but strong emails on my book account after The Dreamweaver came out. And it said, what's wrong with you? This book sucks. Like, are you depressed? I wrote back, it's a textbook. Like, why are you buying a philosophy textbook? So I have to warn, my publisher says, don't fly around the world and tell people not to buy your books. I'm telling you right now, don't buy the second book. I don't want to deal with the mail that you're going to be sending me. So those 2 books were very serious. And this one, much more playful, that we're inserting sort of pop culture and things that are really in our daily lives into these, and then allowing us to spend a paragraph or 2 paragraphs actually understanding and being able to connect with these big ideas. So one of those that I'd like to share with you, and if you have your Reading is Fun books, this is on page 45. There's an image. Many of the bumper stickers have images next to them. This has the image of a baby bottle. And one of the things that I included in this sticker is an idea from a philosopher, from Peter Singer, who's one of the most well-known living philosophers, somewhat controversial, but he has this great image of being part of a global village, and he uses that to drive home his sort of utilitarian calculus of morality. And he doesn't use it to talk about this topic per se, but he does weigh in on this topic a little bit later. So I found that this was a great example of, and this is one of the original five, right? Random House didn't like these five, and they liked these five. This is one of their original five where they came away saying, hey, we've heard of Peter Singer and his global village. We never really got it until now. And by the way, we now react differently towards bottled water. So the bumper sticker is, bottled water is for suckers. Nowhere in history does the phrase selling ice to Eskimos apply more aptly than to the bottled water fiasco. And not just because the analog to ice in this case is its melted counterpart. We Eskimos have been duped. There's gold in them thar hills, came the cry in the 1980s. Blue gold. Wait, you're going to put dirtier, less palatable water in a bottle and ship it around the world to sell, pausing between sips of tap water, to people that already get it for free? Well, if they're willing to spend billions of dollars each year on phone psychics, this will be even easier. We'll even name our first bottling Naive. Or maybe we should spell it backwards just to slip it by the consumer, take the weird little dots off the I. Evian still has a nice ring to it. We'll put a picture of a mountain on it. If this week in America is like the week before and the week before that, then we drank 1 billion bottles of water, and we'll drink another billion next week. In a time of great financial struggle and concern for our planet's survival, this life force must be cleaner and better tasting, right? Most blind taste tests actually show the palatability of tap water. This should be of no surprise, as tap water is more highly regulated. Even in our more highbrow case of wine tasting, expert oenophiles, fancy name for wine snobs, are easily tricked into thinking a white wine with red food coloring is actually red wine, or that wine from a $90 bottle tastes better than the same wine in a bottle with $10 on it. Okay, so humans are gullible. They form preconceived notions. What's the harm? For you, the consumer, the only harms are you're drinking a less regulated product at greater cost. For you, the environment, the only harms are the massive fuel and emissions required to ship this heavy substance around the world and all the bottles left to deal with. For you, one of the billion who don't have access to safe drinking water, you're probably not reading this book. To further illustrate, Princeton University ethicist Peter Singer uses the concept of a global village. He suggests that we have a moral duty to all of the members of our village, even if we don't see them, and especially if we can do so without sacrificing anything of comparable moral importance, as in his clear-cut example in which we should muddy our pants if it saves the life of a drowning child. A quick trip to Fiji provides a perfect application. Due to the country's isolation in volcanic soil, much of their population cannot get safe drinking water. The Fiji company boasts of this on their website. Fiji is far away, but when it comes to drinking water, remote happens to be very, very good. So they paint a hibiscus flower on every bottle and ship it 10,000 miles to San Francisco, where someone sits in a bath of perfectly safe drinking water straight from the springs of Yosemite, sipping Fiji. Little does our bather know, there is likely more fecal matter in the bottle than in the tub. Fiji water has 3 times the colony-forming units for E. coli, the bacteria found in human feces, than the recommended maximum. As other bumper sticker wisdom reminds us, shit happens, but who'da thunk it happens in our now strangely nutty-tasting premium bottled water? So, in light of the thousands in our global village who die daily from diseases transmitted through contaminated water, Singer suggests we instead, quote, put that dollar in a jar, carry a water bottle, send all the money to someone who has real needs, and you're no worse off. It's funny in that not-so-funny way that we'll drive 10 minutes out of our way to buy 15 gallons of gas for 20 cents cheaper per gallon and then walk into Gas Mart and plunk down $3 for something we get for free. Sucker. So, there we have a very good example, and none of these in any way follow templates or formulas. I mean, that was sort of the fun of writing the book. Sometimes the pop culture sneaks in at the end. Sometimes we don't have direct quotes from philosophers. Sometimes it's a little heavier on the philosophy with some of the more serious topics, right? But the idea being that we have the bumper sticker serving as the sugar on top. The Oracle Kai is so in my head. right? We have the sugar on top. We have something in pop culture that we connect with, and then we get sort of one or two of these big ideas from big thinkers and can tie it all together. So one of the other ones, and I'll paraphrase a few and then have one I'd like to finish with, that Random House liked, is the bumper sticker, size does matter, typically on a Hummer. And what this allowed me to do, I went and looked at the cup sizes from fast food chains and found that in almost exactly 10 years, the large of 10 years ago, the exact same size cup is now small, and they go up from there. And some don't even offer small anymore. They just start with medium, or Starbucks has that creepy tall that's like the smallest is a tall. And right, so we can sort of start to look at this relativity of size. How can the same sized cup be both large and small? So then 7-Eleven comes along, gives us the big gulp, right? 32 ounces of this carbonated elixir. Now, the human stomach is on average 30 to 34 ounces. So the big gulp fills an empty human stomach with soda. Now, about 3 years later, they perform what I, in my philosophical mindset, consider to be metaphysical magic. They turn the big gulp, without even touching it, into just gulp with the super gulp, 64 ounces. Now, on the West Coast, I realized we didn't have this on the East Coast. The West Coast, I have to actually brace myself here a little bit. Arco has given us a handle on each side, the beast. 88 ounces. You can't drink it in under 45 minutes or your body will expel the liquid, right? So we have this inroads, right? We're kind of looking at the relativity of size. And I'm not sure if we saw 3 weeks ago in the New York Times, there was an article on the Last Supper, the rendition of the Last Supper, and how it's been reproduced over the years. And as it's been reproduced over the years, the food portions have grown 47%, right? They say, oh, clearly isn't enough bread to feed all these guys, right? So the food has grown. So we're sort of looking at the relativity of size, and we've got this bumper sticker to frame it and talk about like size does matter. But the question is, in what way does it matter? And it now allows us this inroads to this fascinating discussion that was going on between philosopher Gottfried Leibniz and Sir Isaac Newton. Now, Leibniz was actually arguing on behalf of what we've seen here, the relativity of size, that it's not so much the intrinsic size of the object, but the size of things relative to it. And he gives a couple of really engaging thought experiments to drive that home. Newton, on the other hand, was arguing that sort of the more intuitive position that the intrinsic size of the object is what matters, regardless of what's next to it or over time. And then along comes Einstein, relativity theory, and as Barbara said at Random House, I finally understood relativity theory. I didn't get it from Stephen Hawking's book, which I think is actually very eloquent, but I got it from this because we're able to sort of frame it in this way that's made more relevant to us. So again, that's sort of the overall approach to how I went about writing the book, is that I'm trying to share the excitement that I had initially when I left. Really nice introduction mentioned I was a human biology major and headed to med school. I was actually about a month away from med school. I'd gotten in and found this philosophy book, blue and white bound, actually written by the philosophy professor at Stanford who does the NPR's philosophy talk, and then sort of serendipitously all comes back full circle and blurbed this book. Sort of, it was all his fault in the good way that I'm here today. And it steered me away, and I called my parents and I said, hey, thanks for that, great education. By the way, I'm going to get a degree in philosophy instead. Like, we'll be in touch. And I was trying to share all of these ideas with family and friends, and their responses were typically, I don't understand what you're saying, or I don't really see how that's relevant in my life. And it was the exact opposite experience that I was having. And I found that 12 years later, 2 books later, umpty number of courses and classes later, this is by far the best way that I could figure out how to get these ideas out and get people engaged in talking. And one of the best reviews that I've gotten was actually at a book club 2 nights ago who read this book, and one of the women there said, my son and I have been reading this book, and just the other day we were driving around and he saw a bumper sticker, and she says this has happened a lot. The one that she referenced was, Jesus is coming, look busy. But what he did is he said, hey mom, look at that bumper sticker. Now, what is the difference between sort of Christianity and Judaism? And they had this discussion about like what they should be doing with their lives. They weren't very religious, and so they were sort of talking about these ideas through the bumper sticker. And she said it was the best discussion she's ever had with her son because they were open to this notion that these bumper sticker slogans had something real behind them. And I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. A bumper sticker in 8 words doesn't capture the depths of these big ideas. Charles Schulz, the creator of the Peanuts cartoon, once said, and you may have seen it on the music video, there's a difference between a philosophy and a bumper sticker. Absolutely. Let's hope so. I mean, I think the problem and why many of these bumper sticker slogans seem so antagonistic is that they're monologues. I mean, someone basically yells at you from their bumper and then drives away, and you don't get to have that discourse. And so what I did was had that discourse for 2 pages, and then what I love to hear from readers is, and then we had discourse for another hour over a cup of coffee or beer or whatnot, that it's used as sort of that springboard. So to get to the final reading, one of the questions that comes up a lot, so I'm just going to nip it in the bud, is my favorite bumper sticker. And I typically come up with 2. It's a little bit like choosing my favorite child at this point, but I can typically get to about 2. One slightly more serious. If ignorance is bliss, then why aren't more people happy? And it's a little bit of my motivation in studying philosophy, and I think it goes all the way back to Plato, is this idea that, right, Plato gives us this notion of the cave, and we're all born into this false reality, and we should be motivated to come out of the cave, even though we're experiencing this sort of blinding, painful light and this frightening new world in 3 dimensions, because it's reality. I mean, you can think of The Matrix, Truman Show, right, where Truman's born into a movie set and everything's set up perfectly for him. This is played by Jim Carrey. But we're all sitting here on the outside thinking, gosh, even though his world is perfect, it's fake. It's a movie set. He should be out here with us, even though it's not as perfect and shiny, dealing with all the stuff we're doing because it's couched in reality. So that's the one, I think, that I'm drawn to philosophically speaking. And the other where I wanted to finish, and like I said, I'd love to take questions or comments or least favorite bumper stickers from you guys, is one, and the story, how I acquired it, I think is kind of funny or endearing. Jessica had left for the day, and I was at home solving the meaning of life, which actually is solved in this book, along with a chicken and the egg question, which I know people are really concerned about. The answer to that is chicken. Again, you can read the book to find out why, but it's solved. The answer to what is the meaning of life is, it's just a bogus question. Like, what is the meaning of X isn't a real question at all. That's why it's unsolvable. And it just distills into what is the purpose of X, and you're the owner of X because it's your life, and you get to decide it. It's kind of empowering / scary, depending on how you look at it. But anyway, we expand on that a little bit. I just gave her the answer. Well, you should still read it. There's some other things that it says. And so there I was, working on the meaning of life, and I get a text from Jessica, my wife, and reading is sexy. Yeah, I'm reading 3 books right now, right? No, it's a bumper sticker, right? So I push everything aside. I search online and find the bumper sticker. There's actually T-shirts, so I buy his and her T-shirts. We have reading is sexy T-shirts, and defend. So this is one of the somewhat lighter bumper stickers in the book. The bumper sticker has the retro reading glasses next to it, and is. The text is, reading is sexy. This bumper sticker wisdom really preaches to the converted with this self-selecting demographic. While sexy clearly involves some apples to oranges style value judgments, for you may disagree as to whether Justin Timberlake is bringing sexy back. It's worth seeking a foundation for sexiness. Of course, one must consider the content of the reading. Reading up on how to eat roadkill? Not sexy. Reading about the deeper meaning behind bumper stickers, and thus an intrinsic connection with oneself and their intimate bond to those around them? Sexy. Ironically, reading about gametes and the fertilization process and development of chromosomes through sexual reproduction? Not that sexy. But reading about the locked eyes of 2 impassioned lovers in gentle embrace on a cool summer evening leading up to all of the gamete stuff? Sexy. Surveying the dictionary definitions of sexy and their relation to the act of reading will help to further our investigation. Definition 1, tending to arouse sexual desire or interest. Freud suggests that much of our sexuality hibernates in our subconscious. The more we come to know ourselves and bring to the surface what our superego suppresses, the more we avoid our ego's defense mechanisms and tap into our libido. Reading plays an instrumental role in such deep introspection. That's pretty sexy. Definition 2, slang, highly appealing, interesting. You're the one choosing the books for the likely reason exactly stated in this definition. Sexy is charged. Definition 3, provoking. Given that you're reading someone else's book with ideas not your own, reading is by definition provoking. And if you're reading your own book, aside from copy editing, then get over yourself and go get sexy. Definition 4, naughty. Isn't it just a little naughty getting into the mind of someone else who's sharing their fantasies, stories, thoughts, and discoveries? Readers can be such naughty voyeurs. And definition 5, lively. Reading actually burns calories, especially if you read books that make you laugh, cry, or pound your fist. In contrast to the non-lively, unsexy couch potato, readers can avoid couches and read under trees, in cafes sipping tea, or nuzzled up in bed with a lover. Additionally, maintaining an active brain has been proven to ward off Alzheimer's disease. In the use it or lose it mentality of a muscle, reading is like a lively little weight room for the brain. How lively, how sexy. So keep reading. You're only getting sexier by the page. Thank you.
Once again, I'd like to thank Jack for stopping by. I apologize for some of those technical
No,
difficulties
that's fine.
earlier.
Mix it up.
Yeah, just make it a little challenging. So if you have any questions, we've got the room for another 15 minutes or so, maybe a little less. And please use the mic for our viewers on YouTube. And that said, I believe he's going to stick around for a few more minutes in the lobby if you'd like to talk to him personally. So to start it off, I'll ask a question that I had in my mind, which is to say bumper stickers are nice for car conversation, and you can kind of inorganically work them into general like bar conversation, but they're not always as convenient as you want to get that, to get that ball rolling on a philosophical topic without saying, so what do you think the meaning of life is to you? Have you come up with any other kind of either tricks or thoughts about how you can introduce a philosophical topic organically without feeling like you're pressuring people to talk about
Right.
it?
I actually did. I gave, right before the book came out, I gave a talk at a teaching conference in Los Angeles. And the whole approach was, how can we get students, I mean, I think they don't have to be high school students. This was the group to whom I was speaking. How can we get students engaged and caring about discussing philosophical ideas? Now, in that terrible, awful, boring textbook, I did spruce it up as much as I could while maintaining the rigor of a college textbook. And then at the end of every chapter, I include movie titles that relate to themes. So like in the reality chapter, The Matrix, The Truman Show, et cetera, there are a myriad ethical movies that talk about the death penalty or cloning or abortion, euthanasia. So that's one way, is to watch this movie, and it's another way to what we want people to do is to become sort of emotionally invested in the topic, which bumper stickers do a decent job of because of the rhetoric that's built into them. Certainly, a good film can do this, where you connect with the character and the issue, and you can sort of live out the drama of the idea. There are a lot of songs. The textbook has lists of popular songs, whether it's rap songs, 70s songs, current rock songs that deal with these ideas topic by topic. Students love to come in. I have them either pick a song off of the list or bring a song in of their own, and we crank it up, and we're sitting in class, listening to Tupac or Jay-Z, and then we've got the lyrics on the board, and then all of a sudden we're discussing the ideas behind it. So, those are two of the ways amongst. I guess those are the two most popular ways, is finding something in, again, if it's students' lives. Sports, I find, are a great way to convey, to get ethical conversation started. We talk about ethics all the time on my team, because you can say, well, what if, in soccer, you've got this player who's acting like he's tripped, but he wasn't? Is that moral, right? And some of them want to say, well, of course it's fine. He's actually earning a foul. That's a way of earning a free kick that makes your team have greater success. And then someone says, but He's not earning, he's lying. He's lying to the referee. Right? You have this discussion of sort of what you owe competitors, what you owe the people who are overseeing the competition. I mean, it's a really rich topic to discuss these issues in a realm that people already can kind of own what's going on. So that's if they're athletically inclined at all, that's my favorite sort of go-to. So yeah, thanks for that.
Questions?
I'm just curious if you have any bumper stickers on your car.
Yes, you are. Well, so the answer is no, but and that's also a very popular question. I think people are like, "Oh, I'm going to get him because I'm going to make him explain his bumper sticker." I always answered, "No, I don't, and I never have." And then when I was in Chicago, it was actually the first night of the non-California tour about 2 weeks ago. I went out with cool Uncle Dave, my mom's brother, who's actually cool. I don't say it like that because he's like not cool. It's really cool. And we went out for beers after the event. And he said, we were talking about Judy, his sister, my mother. And I remember I said, oh my gosh, I've been always answering this question, no, I don't and never have, as if I'm somehow above bumper stickers, which would be a terrible thing. And I said, oh, no, that's not true. My junior year at Stanford, when I was home on a break, my parents gave me the keys to the 1980 Volvo. I'm making this is what the Volvo looked like in 1980, it's a big box, right? And they gave me the keys. And as I was getting ready to drive back up the coast to school, my mom came out, slapped a Christian fish on the car, right? The two half circles. Said, this will help you meet a nice young woman. So, and I do, in the book, I spend 2 pages, not just looking at the Christian fish symbol and sort of the history behind it, but all of the responses to it, where you can put, your respective God's name in the middle to say, this is who I think created everything, or Darwin and evolution, and now there are feet on it and carrying wrenches, and actually dinosaurs eating the fish. There's the Darwin fish having sex with the Christian fish. People have put gefilte and chips in the middle to show how wacky and zany they are. But it never happened that I was, driving up the coast and like, beep, beep. What? Me too. Did you see my fish? Yeah, pull over. I kind of think like this never happened. And thankfully, because I ended up with this nice young woman that they were hoping for anyway. So that's the long-winded answer. I don't, but I did.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, are you ever concerned, I guess, in the classroom setting that some of these tangible items, whether they be bumper stickers or the scenario with the soccer player, if they ever kind of distort some of the greater arguments that our great thinkers have proposed? For instance, your students saying, well, Tupac has it instead of Aristotle.
Right. This is a great question. My answer is no, and I'll frame why. I think we were discussing early on. When I was at Princeton, there was a student who was sitting right in this area. It's just my mental image of him, and he sat there like this the whole time, right? So here I am. We had this great event, and all the time I'm just trying to see if I can just get him to crack a smile or nod his head. So ends first question, yes, and he said, "Well, I came here as a skeptic." And then you're like, really? You're skeptical of the bumper sticker guy? Like, I'm not here to talk about global warming as a farce. Like, it's like, okay. And then he went through and read all of the books that he's read, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, sort of rhetorically, basically, I can't tell if you're a comedian or a philosopher. And this was meant as a criticism. And I said, well, first of all, you actually just paid me a really good compliment. Like, if you want to do all, and I didn't have this image yet because Harvard happened after Princeton. If you want to do all of the, copulating with cactus stuff, there are thousands of those books, and they're great, and I've read a lot of them. That's not what this book is. And I surmised at that time that I would love to know. I surmised that probably half of the philosophy professors on Princeton's campus would say rubbish. Right? He's watering it down. He spent not even a full paragraph on Peter Singer's Global Village. And Peter Singer's Global Village runs much deeper than that in some instances. And my guess is that half of them would take what's more of my stance. It was actually one of the first interviews I did was at University of San Francisco by a professor who said, I'm actually using this book in my class next semester. And I said, have you read the whole book? Like, do you know what this is? He said, I've read the whole book and it's great. I'm going to use this textbook and this book. We're going to read the euthanasia entry here. And then we're going to read what the philosophers have to say about euthanasia. And my take would be, for a philosophy 1 class or the university setting, philosophy 101, it should be fun, it should be engaging, you should be able to go to a cocktail party and speak for 30 seconds about what I think therefore I am means and its relevance, Plato's cave, Singer's global village. And after that, if you find these ideas alluring and important, then you take philosophy 2 or 201 and you sit down and read Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics because you get why it's important. You're engaged. You already see that the ideas are relevant in your life and you now want to work through. And it's a beautiful text, but it's not that beautiful if you just sit down and pull it off a shelf and say, it doesn't start out, it was a dark and stormy night. It's a tough text to get through. So I hope I've answered your question. I think some professional philosophers would say, this is bad news. It's watering it down. I think some would celebrate the invitation to do philosophy, and that's much more where I lie. So yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you. I agree.
So just a couple minutes left. Any last questions from the audience? No? So you actually mentioned you didn't understand the bumper sticker we gave you.
Oh, I kind of do now. It's been explained. Because it was a response to my other computer as a laptop.
My other computer is a data center, which refers to keeping your information that you normally keep on your computer in the cloud. And the authors team's response to that was, well, my other data center is a book. Discussed. No, I just wanted to make sure that we had at least properly explained what was going on behind that.
It was, in my feeble computer brain mind, I was able to connect the dots, and it's awesome. I mean, this is going right to the top of my list. So.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to that in volume 2.
Absolutely.
And once again, Jack Bowen, everyone, round of applause.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.